From athletes to authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, Rahim Lockhart.
So Mendenhall, Mississippi, that's where it all started for you. How would you describe your childhood growing up there in Mendenhall?
Mendenhall was a good place for me. It's where my family is from. So I'm a family guy in a small community. So I've always had that small town mentality that, you know everybody knows you, everybody knows your business, everybody knows what you're into. So, you always had to be cognizant that you're never invisible. You're always being seen, everybody's concerned. And, one thing I learned, as I grew, that, man, that concern is not everywhere you go. So that's always been an adjustment as you get older. But, that was a good, solid building block for me.
So it sounds like the people in Mendenhall, everybody looked out for one another.
Oh yeah. We had small communities. My grandmother was a teacher. So I always had community in my life. She was a 30-plus year teacher in the community. My grandfather was a 30-plus year teacher in the community. So everybody knew me when I was growing up because of my grandparents rather. So I'm always been that small town mentality.
So you had a lot of people keeping up with what you were doing. So you had to really keep the straight and narrow, right?
Oh yeah, and I had a little rebel gene too. So that's one of the reasons I went to Ole Miss with the Rebels. And so everybody kind of knew, I always stayed on me. Rahim, you're supposed to be here, where you going? So I love Mississippi. When I was one of those kind of kids, as I started getting good in basketball, people were thinking about going all over the place. I knew I wasn't going anywhere other than Mississippi. You
describe your grandparents. How would you describe your parents growing up there?
My parents, they were the children of teachers. Mm-hmm. So, they had the same mentality. And that was cool. That was cool. My mom and my dad, they were married young. Well, my dad was actually older than my mom. And so that was interesting. It was cool. But it was all good. It was all good.
You have any siblings growing up?
I had a brother. I had a little brother who I was kind of, that little brother, big brother relationship. My mom always told me you were responsible for your little brother. Mm-hmm. So I kind of grew up with that mentality that I always was concerned about him. And even when I went to Ole Miss, he came to Ole Miss at all our events. So he kind of was a junior rebel. But he actually ended up playing football, going to the University of Missouri. So that was a big accomplishment for him.
You said you were kind of a rebel growing up, so that kind of led to my next question. What was Rahim Lockhart like as a child? How would you describe yourself as a child?
Curious.
Yeah.
Curious. I was always into something. Whether it was good or bad, I wanted to be, because I wanted to see what it was about. And I would come from a disciplined home. My grandmother was a teacher, and so she was all about discipline. My mother was the child of a teacher, so she was all about discipline and following rules. And I had a free spirit, so I always kind of did my own thing, but I had to stay in the realms and parameters that they allowed me to be in.
So you were curious about things. So was there something not involving sports that you thought you wanted to be when you grew up, not involving basketball or sports?
I knew I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
My grandmother was a teacher. I say a lot about my grandmother because my grandmother was kind of like the cornerstone of our family. And her being a teacher, she bought my school clothes. And I thought teachers made a lot of money because she always had money to buy me stuff. And that kind of persuaded what I did going into. I always knew I was going to be a coach or something because I liked the impact my grandmother had on our community. And I wanted to have that same impact at some point in my life.
How early did basketball start becoming of interest to you? Do you remember how early it was?
Oh, it was a hobby as a kid. Mm-hmm. My father, speaking of my father, he played for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, wow.
So I always had a vision. I was going to play professional ball or something. And I wanted to be better than him. And he impacted my decision to play basketball. My grandmother, she had no love for athletics.
Really?
She was always on me about my education. And she really made me choose between the two. And my passion was basketball, but I was in her living room after every school day to get my lesson. So I was a real smart kid. I was never one of those kids that had concerns about his ACT because I already had my grade. And it was an interesting way to grow up because all my friends would play. As soon as school was over, they was out playing. I had to spend 2 more hours getting more lessons. So that's why school was always easy for me. And basketball was just a passion I just picked up.
How would you describe your high school years? Because we were talking about it for the interview. You attended McGee in elementary school, then eventually Mendenhall, and then, like you said before the interview started, felt comfortable at Piney Woods. So how would you describe your high school years?
Piney Woods, that was a season of my life where I felt freedom because I was 6'7", 6'8". I was starting to get some attention in basketball. Like I said before, most of my life, education was the centerpiece to my life, what my grades were looking like. So when I went to Piney Woods, I actually got a chance to be away from home. I had my dormitory that I lived in, so I was able to focus more on basketball. And the coaches, they recruited me to Piney Woods. They saw the talent I had, so I was able to kind of blossom at that point from there. But education was such a centerpiece for me, I never could escape it. I always did well in my classes. And so when I got a chance to just focus on basketball, that's where I started seeing my own future. From before, I was envisioning what my grandparents and my mother had put into me, but I started seeing how basketball could pave the way for my future.
Do you have a favorite memory from high school?
A favorite memory from high school? I said the camaraderie I got a chance to be with my teammates at Piney Woods. That's something I always take with me because I didn't have the pressures of being at home. I could just kind of do and be who I wanted to be. And I started seeing that I was more of a homebody. I never did do a lot outside of the campus. So that was a freeing experience for myself, knowing more about who I was.
You had a decorated high school career, talking about high school, and so I'm curious, what kind of expectations coming out of Piney Woods did you have for yourself, not just involving sports, but overall? What did you want to do when you graduated high school?
It was one of those situations where my talent took over. I didn't have a dream when it came to basketball, other than any kid, oh, I want to go pro. But it wasn't a reality to me. And so I just knew I knew I had to get my books. So that anchored me. But when I got a chance to go to Piney Woods and win some state championships and travel and play basketball and start getting attention from it, it was a little bit overwhelming because I didn't expect that, because I never even knew that existed. So when I remember my going into my senior year, my junior summer, I started getting attention. So I went to Texas because an AAU coach recruited me to go to Texas. So I went to Texas and had a great summer and it got a lot of attention from a lot of different schools that was very unexpected for me. You know, people think when you're an athlete that you're just used to it, but they don't realize you're a 16-year-old kid that's been a kid. So that was a little bit overwhelming for me, but I was anchored, like I said, I was anchored into education. So I never did let it get to my head, but I had a little rebel streak. I said I had a little rebel streak to me. So it kind of took a while for me to settle back down and to be who I need to be.
It's interesting to hear you say that because you don't hear that a whole lot now about kids being centered in education. So it was almost like because of who your grandparents were, because of the upbringing you had with your parents, it sounds like you were already, as you said, centered and anchored. So yes, it was overwhelming, but if you had not had that sort of upbringing with your grandparents and parents, how do you think that would have went? You probably wouldn't have handled it as well?
I look at a lot of my high school teammates from Mendenhall. They've had a precarious life. And I see the difference between them and me because we grew up the same, But because I had parents and grandparents who were centered in education, I believe that anchored me a little bit stronger than them. They've had some real up and down moments in their life. Like I've had majority of my classmates from Mendenhall went to prison at some point, and they fell victim to that small town mentality with a little bit of trouble early, and then as they become grown, that little bit of trouble when they were kids kind of snowballed into their adult life. And I was able to avoid that because I was, like I said, I was centered in education. I wasn't allowed to just roam the streets after school was over with.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We're going the extra mile, and we're taking you with us.
We have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
Join us on the Extra Mile podcast as we travel Mississippi highways to bring you in-depth conversations with state leaders,
gotta have the ability to get their product to market,
infrastructure stakeholders, and Mississippi locals to give you a behind-the-scenes look at transportation throughout the state.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
You can listen and watch episodes of the show by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile.
So when did Ole Miss start showing up on your radar? Like, when can you remember them really starting to make a push for you?
I remember early when I was in Mendenhall. We had a senior who was a pretty good basketball player. His name was Anthony Richards. He was getting recruited by quite a few people, and Ole Miss came to recruit him one day at Mendenhall, and they saw me. And I remember Coach Brian Barnes. He was shaped funny. And so I remembered him. And he had you got to know his personality was real enduring. And I remember he came and clapped my hand, shook my hand, and I just remember that. But then when I went to Piney Woods, my new high school coach went to Ole Miss. And he had a relationship with Coach Barnes, and he took me that summer to Ole Miss for an unofficial visit. So Ole Miss was kind of implanted in my head by the people around me. And when I went there for a visit, I never forget, they asked me, why wouldn't I come to Ole Miss? And at that time in my life, I didn't know a lot about Ole Miss. All I knew was the Egg Bowl. It was a big controversy about the rebel flag at that time. And I remember when they asked me, why wouldn't I come? I said, well, I heard y'all were racist. And the one thing the answer they gave me was very enlightening for me. They said, well, we know what our reputation is, and so we're making a conscious effort to change that reputation, which made all the sense in the world to me, because when you travel AAU, people have their misconceptions about Mississippi. And I remember I was playing with some kids from New York, and they called me country, and they just were kind of ribbing me a little bit. But I remember that when I went to Ole Miss and saw the big, beautiful buildings there and saw all the people, how polite they were, and it looked like a city to me, because I'm from Mendenhall. When you come from Mendenhall to Oxford, it looks like a whole nother world, you know, especially on campus, Ole Miss campus. But Oxford was a small town, but Ole Miss is a big city in my eyes. So I felt real comfortable. I said, I can actually do something here.
What was the clincher for you? And what I mean by clincher, we're sitting here in the beautiful law offices of Jesse Mitchell, and when we did the interview with Jesse, he said the clincher for him coming to Ole Miss, it's ironic we're sitting down with you now, but he said the clincher for him to come to Ole Miss was on one of his visits. They went to a basketball game, and Keith Carter, one of your old teammates, now the AD at Ole Miss, obviously, caught a missed free throw and just flushed it with one hand. And Jesse said, okay, that's my favorite. I don't know who this white boy is, as Jesse put it, but he's my favorite college basketball player right now. And he said that was it for him. That was the clincher. Mm-hmm. So what was the clincher for you to say, you know what, that's it, I'm coming to Ole Miss?
I can go through a lot of different. I remember being at the game that Keith got that dunk. And that was a big moment. I came the day they beat Kentucky. It was freezing out. It was a big snowstorm. And man, I remember my coach convinced me to come up there and do it in the middle of a snowstorm to go up there and watch them beat Kentucky. And I remember I went to a SWAC basketball game. It was a totally different environment. I liked the environment at Ole Miss. But also I remember when I went on a visit, they surrounded me with a lot of people that looked like me that worked on campus. They had some really good positions. I remember Thomas Wallace, and they all really fed into me and told me, look, this is a place we're gonna take care of you. And so I believed them. And then it was a Mississippi. Like I said, it was gonna be hard for Ole Miss not to get me because I'm a Mississippi guy. I never did have a desire to up and leave. Even my whole career, I've been coaching here. Like I think I have about 16, 17 years in the state. I never had a desire to leave Mississippi. I never was one of those kind of people, I want to go somewhere big. I feel like Mississippi is big as you need to be. And when I met these people and they showed me so many different things you could do on campus and how many people in Ole Miss that were in high positions in Mississippi, I thought I can actually make a living here. And then, like I said, my grandmother was a teacher, and like I said, she was rich to me. She wasn't rich in real life, but in my mindset, she was a rich woman. And I said, if I come to Ole Miss, I can piece this thing together. I can make a life for myself.
She defined what the word rich really should mean for you at an early age, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. She was able to provide for herself and provide for me. And I said, if I go to Ole Miss, I can get one of these good jobs that all these people say they have. Mm-hmm. Sure, I can make a life for myself.
Mm-hmm. Rod Barnes, we talked about him a moment ago. He's one of my favorite all-time guys. The first conversation you had with Coach Barnes, what was that like? What did that entail?
The first conversation I had with Coach Barnes, his son came to my game, and I loved kids at an early age, and he really had me in that. We really connected. I was 18, he might have been 5 or 6, and his dad let me get in my car. So I kind of developed a relationship with him. It was just, Coach Barnes gave me that fatherly figure that I desired. You know, my dad was in my life too, but he just made me feel comfortable that he was gonna take care of me. Him and Rob Evans. Rob Evans gave me that older grandfather figure, and Coach Barnes gave me that father, almost brotherly figure, and made me comfortable with being away from home.
Rob Evans is another one of my favorite guys ever. Love Coach Evans, love Coach Barnes. You get to Ole Miss in 1997, and that team has some pretty talented guys, so they're adding you to the talent roster. So you got Keith Carter, Ansu Cisse, Jason Smith, Michael White, Jozon Darby, shout out to Jozon, obviously, Anthony White, Jason Flanagan, just to name a few, and then they're adding you to the post. So a loaded team. Was there anyone on the squad that you can remember that, I don't know, sort of took you under their wing? You're a freshman?
Ansu Cisse. I remember he was the first player that I knew was better than me. And he was such a friendly guy. I mean, Ansu had a heart of gold. And I remember when I came my college visit, he just kind of took to me. And he treated me like a little brother. And you know, when you got the best player in the country treating you like a little brother, that's a great feeling to have. Like, that's my big brother. He the best player in the world. And so he and I still good friends to this day.
Keith Carter told me that Ansu was the best teammate that he had ever had. It sounds like you feel the same way about Ansu.
He was one of those guys that had no problem sharing the spotlight with you. You know, some guys look at you as competition. Ansu didn't look at us as competition. He looked at us as complementaries. Like that we were able to compliment him, he can make us brighter. And that's exactly what he did.
I've heard Keith Carter say about your transition from high school to college basketball at Ole Miss, the way you changed your life, he was quoted as saying it that way. When you got to Ole Miss, the way you changed was one of the most remarkable transformations that he'd seen. What do you think he meant by that?
Like I said, I had a rebel streak. And being around those guys, those were real good guys, first and foremost. And, you know, me being a rebel trying to find myself, you know, being black in Mississippi makes you have to find who you are, because there's so many things going around in your life that people say things and you experience certain things. And like I told you, my father was a Muslim when I was a kid. So I had a lot of things that were put on me as far as thought process. And I had to find my own thought process. And when you meet good people like Keith Carter, Mike White, Ansu Cisse, you know, from different walks of the world, they're just good people. They help you see things a little bit clearer. And I was able to see people. And, you know, I met Ole Miss, being a black guy at Ole Miss, you see people, you see all that, you hear about all this information. Like I said, the rebel flag was a big issue back then. But when you get a chance to meet the people and put a face with all the things that they say, then you say, man, these people ain't bad people. Now you're able to go to the next step of your life. Now, what kind of person are you gonna be? And they helped me a lot. When I say help me a lot, Keith, Mike, Ansu, Jason Smith, just good people. And I was able to see the people for who they were. Man, I had a great time. And then we won games. Then I was able to learn from these people, from good positions. You know, I've heard some nightmares from certain people who went to certain schools that they weren't surrounded by good people. Like I said, all those guys, Joseph Darby, good people. Man, just great people around. Ole Miss, Coach Evans, great person. He put a great collection of people there. I think that's one of the reasons why Ole Miss is so enduring to a lot of people's hearts, especially Ole Miss basketball, because of the things that were started back in 1996. That's the reason why, even to this day, there's a big fan base, because of those good people. And I want to be a part of those good people.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
I'm Horn.
And I'm CPA. This is Jane.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Jane is looking for a CPA to help with compliance.
Nice. The CPA is great with compliance.
Good to hear.
All right, Jane, shoot.
I'm looking for some mergers and acquisition advice.
Well, I can review forms and dot I's and cross T's, but other than that,
Yes. We do more than advise on mergers and acquisitions. We bring in buyers, help you find capital, put the whole deal together.
Really?
We also offer wealth strategy collaboration, if that'd be helpful.
It would.
And if you're in the market to buy, we offer organization development, training, and coaching services.
Great to know.
When you're done with CPA, let me know. We can chat.
She seems nice.
Yeah, she's great. Now about those I's and T's.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Do you also dot I's and cross T's?
Yes.
I'm gonna.
Yep, I would too.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
talk about winning games in 1997. You've got this great nucleus of players like we just talked about. 3 seniors, 7 juniors. That team goes 22-7, wins the SEC West. You make it to the first round of the NCAA Tournament. And, of course, I hate to bring it up, but you know it's coming. The game against Valpo has to be one of the worst bad beats. I argue with this with some folks all the time. It has to be one of the worst bad beats in March Madness of all time.
We were going to the Final Four that year because Ansu was good enough to carry us. And I'm talking about every game, either Ansu would carry us or Keith would carry us, and it wasn't any jealousy. One thing I've learned in coaching is very rare that you have a team that's not jealous of each other. And we didn't have those problems because nobody cared who got the attention. We all knew our roles, and we all felt good about our roles. I remember after a game early, I didn't play much, and I was feeling bad about my life, just because I wasn't playing. I'm my first time not playing. And Keith got on the bus with me and told me, keep your head up, you just keep working, it's gonna be all right, your time will come. And that's rare in these days that the superstar player will take time with a bench guy like myself. And man, it made me feel a whole lot better. It really affected my leadership skills that he took time out of, he just scored 30 and took time out to make sure I was feeling good.
It's funny you say that because I do remember in our interview he talked about, and I want to ask a lot of the guys that played with you guys. He said that the reason we succeeded, obviously, we had some good players. Obviously, we had some great players. We had, some great coaches, but we genuinely loved one another. Oh. And that's what I'm kind of hearing from you right now, that you guys genuinely loved each other, and that is rare, particularly in college athletics. You agree with that? Oh yeah, we had a big love. I'm talking about we all were members of FCA. We had an excellent FCA leader, Wes Jury, and he spent a lot of time with us. He crafted our minds to how it looks, what love looks like. Mm-hmm. You hear a lot of people say I love you and best of luck, but man, until you actually know what it looks like and how it feels, that's a different energy that team possessed, that we all cared. The Valpo game, where were you? I mean, I've seen the highlights, but what are you thinking when Bryce Drew lets that shot go? As soon as he caught it, because I remember, I'll never forget this day. I remember when he caught it, I said, man, that's one shining moment. This is my mind. That's one shining moment. As soon as he caught it, because I was on the floor, and I don't know what my good friend of mine, Jason Flanagan, why he wasn't on him. But when he caught that ball, I said, man, he gonna make that shot. I said, man, that's gonna be one shine moment. And the first thing I thought about was, this gonna be a moment I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life. And he hit the shot. He hit it. Crushed me. I remember it crushed all of us. And but I think that what really carried a lot of us for the rest of our careers to be successful for the rest of our career. We didn't want to relive that moment again. That's crazy that's what went through your mind, one shining moment. That's wild. And you guys did come back in '98. You finished that season 20-13, make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament that year, before I think Michigan State was like the #1 overall seed that year. '99, you guys finish 19-14, third round finish in the NIT. And then that 2000 season rolls around. You guys had the late Justin Reed, Aaron Harper, David Sanders, all those guys from right here in the metro area, with the 2 Jasons, Flanagan and Harrison, and joining you on the squad. I mean, that's a loaded team too. We talk about the team with Keith and Ansu, but this is a loaded team now. You win the SEC West. You make it to the first Sweet 16 in school history before losing to eventual national runner-up Arizona. It was such a special season, no doubt. So when you look back at that season and all the things, all the components of it, all the practices, the coaching staff, everything that clicked so well, what was it about that team in your estimation that allowed you guys to click so well? Because everyone has a different opinion on it. In your mind, why did y'all have so much success? We had talent, first of all. Yeah. I think, and we also had, in our talent, we all knew our positions. We all accepted our roles.
And I feel like we had great leaders, because I knew at my senior year, I had become a really good leader, because I had learned from some great leaders. I learned from Keith, I learned from Ansu, I learned from all those guys, Mike. But I think what it was, we had some great talent, young talent that were humble and they were ready to be led. Because when you get a guy like Justin Reed, who was an All-American in high school, he was the most decorated high school player we've had at Ole Miss in a long time. And you get a guy like him who's just a hard worker, just the blend of talent we had. We had Justin Reed who had a lot of talent, but he was just a hard worker. It wasn't like he was a flamboyant guy. He was just a boot strapped up, let's go to work. And then you had a guy like Aaron Harper who was extreme talent as far as shooting the ball. Then you had Jason Harris. We had a bunch of humble guys that knew their role and that were willing to do their roles, not willing. None of us were looking to go pro. None of us had all this big expectation and hype saying we got to go and we have to get for ourselves. And I think it was the spirit of Coach Evans had seeped into all of us, that we're a team, we do it for each other. Coach Barnes, he preached that every day, do for your teammate. And I think we fell in love with one another. And that was, I feel like that was that secret weapon that we possessed, that we knew that we were not doing for ourselves, we were doing it for each other.
So people love when I do this. Let's take a look at your accomplishments in your career at Ole Miss. Some people get, kind of weird when I start reading this stuff. You ranked 27th in Ole Miss history, 1,160 career points. You earned all SEC honors as a senior, averaging 13 points, 8 rebounds a game. You're a member of the Ole Miss Team of the Century, helping guide the Rebels to 3 NCAA Tournament appearances, 2 SEC Western Division titles, and 3 20-win seasons in your 4 years in Oxford. You talked about small-town kid from Mendenhall earlier when we started. So being the small-town kid from Mendenhall and hearing all that and being one of the greats in Ole Miss basketball history, you have to have a lot of pride when you hear that. What comes to your mind when you hear those accomplishments?
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for it. I remember I never had dreams. Well, I had dreams. They weren't realities. I had dreams and thoughts of making it to the NBA, but I just wanted to be great. I wanted to be known to be great in my community, and that what they provided me, the opportunity to be great. And I'm thankful for it. I'm more thankful than anything. Being around good, like I said, being around meeting good people, and being able to have an opportunity to grow up in a clean environment. It's a lot of people that are not afforded to have those opportunities, and I'm just thankful to have that opportunity.
You finished at Ole Miss in 2001, Bachelor's of Arts degree in history. And I always like asking this question, what plans or goals did you have coming out of Ole Miss?
I want to be a teacher. I want to be a coach. And like I said, like I told you, my grandmother was the richest person I knew. And I had no concept of how much money she was making. And so that, for me, when I got out of school, and Ole Miss has all these connections with, with school systems and all that, it really just played right into my hands. And then I was able to spark a pretty significant coaching career. And it's been a dream come true for a country boy.
I like that, country boy. I'm from Rankin County, so country boys uniting right here, right? So you did get to spend some time playing for the Globetrotters, though, D-League and the Globetrotters. So what was that experience like? Man, it was a dream. That was a dream come true. That going to the G League, at that time it was a D League. I felt like I made it. I was able to play 50 games in the G League, and we actually won the championship. And I just felt like the next step in my life, I was like, man, I guess I'm going to the NBA. But when the NBA didn't work out, I knew I had something I could remember for the rest of my life. And that was an awesome experience. I'm talking about, that was phenomenal. It was phenomenal for me, because I'm not hard to please. I'm not one of those people that never thought I got to have $1 million or have to have all these things. I felt like I had everything I wanted. I was well respected in my community. I was satisfied.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We're going the extra mile, and we're taking you with us.
We have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
Join us on the Extra Mile podcast as we travel Mississippi highways to bring you in-depth conversations with state leaders.
Got to have the ability to get their product to market.
Infrastructure stakeholders and Mississippi locals to give you a behind-the-scenes look at transportation throughout the state.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
You can listen and watch episodes of the show by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile.
Remember the neighborhood grocery store of your childhood? The place where everyone knew your name, or where they still help you carry your groceries to the car? Well, welcome back to the good old days. Allen's Supermarket delivers that and more. Since 1967, Allen's Market has strived to serve the best meals in the metro. So stop on in. Fill that tank up, whether it's your fridge or your car, we've got you covered. Allen's Supermarket, proud sponsors of Ole Miss Baseball's national championship run. We hope you're enjoying Audibles with Jason Scarborough. Watch every full, unedited episode via our digital platforms. Download our free Roku TV channel simply by searching for Audibles on your Roku device. Look us up on our YouTube channel too under Spirit Media Network and hit subscribe. And enjoy episodes of Audibles along with our other original content. Bookmark our website at spiritmedianet.com and stay up to date on what's happening on the Spirit Media Network, where we're changing the game.
Hello, I'm Gary Jolly from the Tractor Store in Richland. Now's the best time of the year to save more with Mahindra, and it all starts with zero. Pay zero down and 0% interest up to 60 months. That's more for less on many of Mahindra's best-selling models, with tractors that deliver more lift, capacity, fuel efficiency, and built-in weight. So get zero down, 0% interest for up to 60 months on Mahindra, the world's #1 selling tractor, Mahindra, available at the Tractor Store in Richland.
So you begin your coaching career, you talk about starting your coaching career kind of back where it all began, an assistant coach at Piney Woods in 2005, and you stayed there until 2007, helping lead the Tornadoes to the 2A state finals in 07. Going back home, being familiar with, of course, playing at Piney Woods, that had to be what pulled the trigger for you to start there, right?
Man, it was this is where Mendenhall and Piney Woods kind of connect. Mendenhall, I left Mendenhall my sophomore year, and from one of the best high school coaches that I know, James Crane from Mendenhall. Mm-hmm. He had a tremendous high school coaching career. He really influenced me as a basketball player. So then I come back home, and I'm actually working for Big Brother, Big Sister at the time, and I go to campus, and the baseball coach when I was in high school at Piney Woods is the basketball coach, and he saw me. Okay, so he begged me to come help. So I came really as a volunteer. And that's how my coaching career started, as a volunteer, and I worked there for a whole year, volunteered for a whole year, and at that time Wayne Brent, who was my assistant, wasn't the assistant coach at Ole Miss when I was there. He had just left Ole Miss, and I didn't want to be a coach anymore. I wanted to just enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. And I begged him to come to Piney Woods and get the program back going, because I did not know how to coach. As a volunteer assistant coach, volunteer head coach, I really had no idea what I was doing as far as getting a coaching plan together and running a practice, and I didn't know what to do. So I got him to come, and he asked me to be his assistant coach, and that's when I learned how to coach. Wayne Brent taught me how to coach basketball, and that's when my career took off. When he showed me the ropes of how to run a program, then next year I left and went to Taylorsville, and that's when I found the best player that I coached, Billy Hamilton, and we went to the tournament 2 years in a row. And that's when I really knew, okay, I want to try this coaching thing. I had a great player, I had a great mentor. So that's when I went to another school, Grenada. Then Grenada, we did pretty good. They never had much of a program. We didn't have much talent, but we were able to accomplish some things. Then I went to Madison Central, and that's when things kind of started coming together.
Why do you feel things started coming together then? Because, hey, you got some time under your belt at this point. You learned from Coach Brent. Is that kind of why you felt things were starting to click for you? What was it about Madison?
God has a plan, and Bobby Hall, who, man, that was my guy. I'm telling you, I fell in love with Coach Hall, man. He really taught me the spirit of coaching, because he was a heck of a football coach, a heck of an AD, and man, he really took a liking to me. And at Madison that time, they just had some talent, and man, we took off, and that was when I really fell in love. I really fell in love with coaching, with the kids, and man, the Madison community. That's a great community to be in when you're winning. I'm talking about those people, good people. Everybody was concerned about the kids, and they never had one at the time. So what they had a scattered success, but they were coming off probably like 60 years of losing. And I got there, they had a lot of Ole Miss Rebel fans there, so they would just felt like home, felt like a real homecoming. And man, we won, and then I ended up going to Jones, and shoot, man, we continued to get that ball rolling, and then next thing you know, I'm at Ole Miss.
Okay, so we're talking about Bobby Hall, right? He's one of my favorite all-time guys, right? Bump and giggle, right? Oh, yeah. You got to tell me your favorite Bobby Hall story or memory from your time at Madison.
I'm gonna go with a memory. I remember I had some issues with some of the administrators.
Yeah. And
Coach Hall, he intervened on my behalf because he was having issues as well.
Right.
And he told the administrators, I didn't hire a history teacher. I had a basketball coach. And that's kind of guided me in my coaching career. I'm here to coach basketball. And then him saying that really empowered what I felt. That man, basketball coach is important. Like we have a duty to these kids that surpasses. I'm not trying to make light of education, because I told you how much education means to me. And I'm not saying what we do is a bit more, but man, it's very important what athletics do for these kids. We have an opportunity to feed into them what an English teacher can't, because we have what they like. They like basketball, they like football. They don't like subject verb agreement. They're not gonna listen to you. So he really empowered me to use my position to feed more into the kids.
And you could have an influence as well. That's what I think gets lost, is as a basketball coach, as a leader in the school, you can help influence these kids that might be on the fence about education, that might not be taking it seriously. You can help influence them being a basketball coach or a football coach, and I think that gets lost sometimes. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I had kids from, especially Madison Central. We had those floor kids that had no interest in English, had no interest in history, but they had a lot of interest in basketball. So it was a lot of kids that I feel like, that I know from their testimonies, that I was able to change the scope of their lives. The kids that would not have went to college, that because they earned a scholarship and they earned it in basketball, that in time when they became more mature, their minds matured, they were in a position to get that education they needed. But a lot of people don't respect that.
You mentioned the time at Jones Junior College, and I'm going to read off to you what you did there. In your time there that ended in 2017, 64-15, your record, 3 straight Region 23 tournament appearances in the JUCO Association. You guided them into a 29-2 overall mark in 2017, the round of 16 that year. So for you, that had to be encouraging, liberating, all kinds of words, boost your confidence to say, hey, for anyone that doubted, hey, he can do it on the high school hardwood, can he do it the next notch up? You proved all of them that you can do it at any level at that. But did you kind of view it that way? Like you proved that you could coach at any level?
That was when I knew I made the right decision as far as my career. I knew I was good. I saw it. you can see when you feeling yourself and you know I'm good at this, and that was very encouraging for me. That, man, basketball is my way, but also, like I said, education always is going to be grounded in me. I was able to work with the junior college level, the kids that were not educationally sound. That let's get them to the next level. So at Jones, one of my biggest accomplishments, even the 29-2 mark was a big accomplishment. But all those kids graduated. All those kids went and graduated from four-year school. They graduated from JUCO, then they also went on and graduated from their four-year schools. That was a big accomplishment for me, because I want to make my grandmother proud that I just want to teach them how to dribble.
In 2018, it kind of comes full circle for you to a degree. You're named an assistant coach at your alma mater for Andy Kennedy's Ole Miss Rebel basketball team. That moment had to be surreal for you, right?
Man, I couldn't believe it. It was I'm coming back to Ole Miss. Now, the one thing I will say, I came to reality quick because I wasn't the head coach. I've been an assistant coach early in my career, but I've never been a head coach on that level, even on a significant level, on the high school level. That showed me that I'm not in charge, that I had to be a complimentary player, and that wasn't what I was used to.
But you did take some lessons, I'm sure, from being under Coach Kennedy, and not to reveal to other coaches who are watching any of your secrets on on the grease board or anything. But what lessons did you take from that time? Like you said, learning, hey, right now I'm not the guy, but I can learn from the guy.
I mean, work. One thing I will say, Andy Kennedy did. He came to work every day, and he was very organized. From before, I did it as a hobby. Basketball was a hobby. I was just good at it, and Jones really helped me see that I was more than good. I was great at it. But he being on the Ole Miss level as a coach, it really made me realize that this was a profession for certain people. I did it more as something I like to do.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We're going the extra mile, and we're taking you with us.
We have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
Join us on the Extra Mile podcast as we travel Mississippi highways to bring you in-depth conversations with state leaders.
Gotta have the ability to get their product to market.
Infrastructure stakeholders and Mississippi locals to give you a behind-the-scenes look at transportation throughout the state.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
You can listen and watch episodes of the show by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile.
During this time too that you had a little bit of a health scare at Ole Miss. You had to miss several games starting the 2018 season, medical leave of absence, diagnosis of high blood pressure is what the story said. How would you describe that time in your life? I mean, you've been an athlete pretty much your whole life. Probably never thought of any kind of health issues as being something you had to even pay attention to. And now you've got this. How would you describe that time in your life?
It made me slow down and appreciate life, You know, when you a coach, you it's the next game, what's the next thing. But when you have a situation where you don't know if you're gonna live or die, you're more appreciative of life. It slowed me all the way down. I know you kind of remarked that I'm a lot more peaceful. I'm more tranquil now because I recognize you gotta absorb the moment and live the moment and enjoy the moment.
Yeah, you're definitely more laid back than I remember you being on the floor because you walked in it. And I kind of joked with Jesse Mitchell earlier. I'm like, he's in great shape. You look like you're in the best shape of your life, and I'm over here, you know, pounding cheeseburgers and everything. You guys look like you can still go out there and play right now.
Can't do it. Can't do it at all. But I will say I'm more mindful of my health. Just being more mindful of who and what I do and what I consume, because I recognize how fleeting life is.
So you played and coached played with and coached a lot of great players. Gone on to the NBA, had great careers as either, you know, a player or as a coach. What are traits that you look for now being the coach at Hazelhurst High School, having the decorated career already as a coach that you've got? What are the traits that you look for in a player that you say, okay, I can work with that, I can mold that? Well, what are you looking for?
Their ability to follow directions. That's very key. How coachable are you? You know, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not coachable, it's not going to be a good mesh. You know, I made a quote today, talent is good, but work ethic is the greater. You know, I feel like that's what the one thing that going to Ole Miss taught me, because I never felt like I was just this dominant fixture, because I played against guys that were bigger than me, and so I recognize my shortcomings. But man, as a coach, will they follow directions? Will they do as you ask? That's probably the biggest. That's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed. When I got to Ole Miss, guys like Keith Carter, those guys, Coach Bourne, Coach Evans didn't have to say things twice. They did it immediately. And that was something, like I told you, I had a little rebellious streak. That helped me, that broke me from their rebelliousness. That, man, these guys are successful and they're winning games because they just doing what Coach say. I thought it was all about your talent.
I've read and heard Keith Carter say, your old teammate, a lot of Keith Carter quotes. So, Keith, this is for you, bud. He said even when you were at Ole Miss, he knew that he had this feeling that you were going to go into some form of coaching, something to do with basketball and coaching. For you, it's more than the grease board and the personal accolades. It's more about the player. Is that a pretty accurate assessment?
Because I guess with me, once I realized I had talent, I wanted the people to look at me more than just my talent, look at me as a person. So that's why my career has been centered around the player. And it's my job as the coach to install the things that the player is missing as far as work ethic, maybe even character. That's what the coaching portion comes in. What are you going to install in this? The player already has the talent. It's not a coach I've ever played for that made me a better player as far as giving me talent. What they did, they made give me some interesting ways of looking at things. But I'm the talent. Don't mess with the talent. Promote the talent. And that's my way of looking at basketball, looking at anything. The talent is there. What are you going to do to get the most out of the talent?
So I always like asking this question. So what does Rahim Lockhart do to wind down? Like when you're around the house and you're not coaching, you're not at a speaking engagement, you're not doing interviews like this. What do you like at home? What do you do to just wind down and chill out?
Whew. What do I do to wind down and chill out?
Because you're pretty chill right now, so I gotta, yeah.
I'm a family man, so I love being around my kids. I love being around my wife. You know, I've been married now since '99, 23 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm more of I'm just a relaxed. I like watching movies. I'm a big Batman fan.
My man. Yeah.
And I'm still trying to digest the last Batman.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't?
I haven't seen the latest one yet.
Man, it's a pretty good one. I'm still trying to digest because it's a lot. It's like almost 3 hours long. But it was a real good, so I like watching movies. I'm a movie guy.
Okay, so outside of Batman and the whole, because I follow Batman, Spider-Man, the whole Marvel comics, all. So outside of Batman, what was the last movie you saw that you enjoyed?
That I enjoyed. Let me see.
Because it sounds like with this Batman movie, you better not have anything else to do. You need to be invested.
I started watching that Batman movie July 3rd, and I just got it.
So you had to parcel it out.
It's a dark movie. It's a lot of just dark. Even the scenes, just the way they shoot it is dark. It's real rugged as far as the voice. The sound is real rugged. So it took me a long time to digest it. I go to sleep on movies, but I watch them again, and I just keep doing it till I finally get it.
I need to watch it. You're like the 9th person this week that said you need to watch it. So that's confirmation I need to watch it. So if we get in your truck, what are we listening to? Are you a big podcast guy? Do you have a playlist that's kind of your go-to? Like if we're riding somewhere to get a bite to eat, what are we listening to?
Man, I love rap. I grew up off rap. And one of my favorite rap artists is a guy named 2 Chainz. Mm-hmm. And I just love the way he poetically expresses my lifestyle as far as being an athlete and then get into a profession. So I really love the way that rap artists can convey the simplest things in poetic terms.
Your wife mentioned something to me in the email with your biography, and she put together a really nice biography for us to prepare for this interview. And she had this neat little fact. You have 4 children, Amira, Alonzo, Ahmad, and Amari. And Amira is a 2021 graduate of Ole Miss. And Amari, she's a high school basketball player, and she's wearing Dad's number 44. Which begs the question, what are you like at your daughter's basketball game? I can only imagine. I'm trying to picture this. What is Rahim Lockhart like at his daughter's basketball game?
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask her, I'm too loud. To me, I'm very, very laid back because I'm not saying much. But you know how kids are. They pick up on the smallest criticism. I'm really hard on her because I want to see the best of her. But I'm not saying really hard. That's a bad term to say. I'm really critical of her play. Not negative criticism, but just always encouraging her to do a little bit more. You can do so much more.
Final question for you. For the young kid in Simpson County, you went on to achieve all you did in high school and college, playing for the Globetrotters at one point. And now all the success that you've had and that you're currently having as a coach, what do you think young Rahim in Simpson County would think about all the success that you're having right now and that you've enjoyed?
Young Rahim would say, wow. You know, because like I say, I grew up on a dirt court. I played every day. He would be proud of the man I've become as far as in my basketball career. He'd be proud of the father that I became. Because that's one thing I would say I'm more than anything. I'm proud of the fact that I'm a father and I have 4 children with my wife. I'm proud of, I'm a husband. I'm proud of my family life because I'm big into family. If you don't have family, you don't have much. And I'm really excited about my children's future. Even when you said about my daughter, I just think she could do so much more than I could do. That I'm excited for them. I'm thankful. I'm thankful for having beautiful kids that have beautiful personalities and have beautiful minds. And the world is their oyster.
And this year, Hazelhurst High School is your next stop. I'll be watching. And I appreciate you taking time with us to send out for Audibles. Thank you for doing this.
Man, I appreciate you inviting me. Absolutely. I was telling my mom today, what I was doing, I said the older you get, you realize that if somebody wants to talk to you and to ask you about your life, you need to be appreciative of it. You know, now I'm 43. It used to be every other day when I was in my 30s and my 20s that people had a microphone. Now those microphones are not as common as they used to be. So now I'm just thankful that you all thought about old Rahim Lockhart.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.